Tales of the Lunaverse, Episode 1 by Rainbowdoubledash, an early reunion. Chapter 6, The Unicorn Challenge. Not since the now legendary battle between Luna and Corona had the skies over Equestria been subject to such a show. The two alicorns twisted and dove around each other, hooves catching and seeping cloud into squalls, tempests which they could then shove into each other's way. Lightning arced across the heavens, illuminating the two in flashes of glory, and peals of power, and thunder rolled ominously, the sound enough to rattle the earth that the two alicorns flew over. In the backs of their minds, both alicorns regretted the havoc they were playing with the weather powers of Equestria, the additional work they were making for the weather ponies of the land. And, true, as was this a race with a set destination, each alicorn could have better secured her victory by simply leaving the other behind and racing toward Tamerlane. But, aside from a greater workload for the Pegasi, the two alicorns were doing no true harm to the land they flew over, nor the ponies who occupied it. And besides, a straight race wouldn't have nearly been as fun. Celestia pushed herself in ways she had never attempted before. Of course, when she had first acquired her wings, she had flown almost non-stop, made a bed of clouds and created weather, out of sheer joy that she could, but never on this scale, never at this speed. Never had she truly pushed her wings and hooves to their limits. Objectively, she had never doubted that she was an alicorn. But tonight, for the first time, she felt it. She whipped up tempests and created storms that would have taken an entire weather patrol of Pegasi to duplicate. She flew higher and faster, for a longer time than she ever thought she could. Luna challenged her with gusts and gale, and Celestia responded in kind each time. Yet, despite this, there was an air of playfulness between the two, the thrill of danger, but no fear of harm. Luna played hard, fast, and dirty, but she did not try to cause undue pain to Celestia. Her lightning stung, but that was far more damaging to Celestia's pride and body, and Celestia never once sought to try to remove Luna from the skies entirely. The thought never even crossed her mind. Her chest heaved, wings ached, hooves sore, but she felt alive. At least, until she and Luna arrived over the edges of a thick, overgrown forest. The two had been wrestling a cloud between them again, moving at near the speed of sound itself, a scarce 100 feet off the ground. When they passed over the tree line, almost instantly, each of their eyes widening in surprise, they each lost their grip on the cloud, falling into it and crashing into each other as the cloud itself dissipated into nothingness, consumed by its own speed. Luna and Celestia plummeted for a few moments as they sought to disentangle themselves from each other, coming apart just in time to save themselves from falling straight into the twisted boughs they flew over. Celestia settled atop a thick crown of one tree, steadying herself with wings spread wide for balance. Looking to Luna, she saw the Princess of Night had done as she had, a few dozen feet ahead.
"What happened?"
Celestia asked, extending and flexing the feathers of her wings. She could feel the ambient moisture in the air, but swirling and moving her wings was doing nothing to gather it, like she had been able to do so easily before. Luna offered a grim smile.
"I hadn't noticed how far we've flown," she said softly. "We have passed over the boundaries of the ever-free forest. Here, the land attends to itself. The plants grow, animals live, the weather changes, all according to the chaotic whims of nature."
She extended a hoof of her head, swirling it around quickly. Had she done so a few 100 feet away, she would have been well on her way towards creating a cloud. But here, all she managed to do instead was stir the air.
"We can still create weather here, thou and I," Luna continued to lower her hoof, "but only because we are alicorns, and only with tremendous effort."
She looked to Celestia, wings spread wide as she took to the air.
"But we can still fly, from here to Tamerlane. It's just a race, thy speed against mine own."
Celestia took to the air as well, still frowning.
"I know the name, the Everfree. This—"
Her eyes widened when the memory struck her, even as her voice dropped.
This is where it ended." She looked to Luna. "This is where our battle ended."
Luna grimaced.
"It is where the contest between my sister and I reached its conclusion, yes,"
she responded, turning a little and pointing.
There, that way. There's a palace. An old palace, built atop the ruins of an old one still. Built itself upon an old one. Back and back through the ages. It was my home once, and my sister's. Mine. Selena looked to her, flash of anger in her eyes, though only for a moment, as the anger swiftly melted away into sympathy. Perhaps, she said carefully, before flying closer to Celestia, looking down at the smaller alicorn. Do you wish to go there? Celestia considered the question for several long minutes, staring in the direction Luna had pointed. Miles away, visible only due to their height in her alicorn eyes, Celestia could see the tip of a tall stone tower poking out over the tops of trees. For a moment, she could almost imagine a pool, a need to go there, to see the place where her hate and rage were trapped forever in the sun, and where she was restored. But that was all it felt like, an imaginary feeling. She wanted to feel a pull, but she didn't. And perhaps that was for the best. Slowly, she shook her head. Perhaps later, Celestia informed Luna, looking to her sister. But not now. Luna, for her part, looked like she barely held back a sigh of relief, as she and Celestia rose above the tree line, facing west once more. Our race resumes, she said after a moment, voice noticeably sinking. No more weather magic. No more contests of skill or guile. We shall fly straight and true to Tambalon. Celestia nodded, though she frowned again as she did so, thinking back to everything Luna had just said, and one thing in particular. Well, I noticed that I am an alicorn, she noted. Luna's eyes widened a little. I did not, she assented. It is so, sister. Thou sayest, we can still create weather here, thou and I, but only because we are alicorns. We, that is plural, yes. And there are no other ponies about claiming to be alicorns that I am aware of. Not all imagining things. I do not believe so. No, thou art raving, Luna said, though she grinned even as she did. But enough! We fly to Tambalon. She shot off, but by now Celestia was beginning to understand Luna and her methods, and so was only a second behind the Princess of the Night, then another moment ahead of her, as though Luna had not expected Celestia to actually start at the same time she did. I said no more contest of guile! Luna shouted against the force of her own speed. Beginning the race when thou commandest guile? Celestia asked in return, looking back over her shoulder at Luna. In response, Luna picked up her speed again, closing in on, then passing Celestia. Celestia's eyes widened at that, found inner reserves of speed herself, as he was able to come up on Luna once more. Forelegs extended so she could have a lead of an inch at most, but a lead nonetheless, on her sister, a lead she was determined to hold, all the way to the island of Tambalon. Celestia's chest heaved, her lungs burned, wings and legs quivered as the adrenaline still coursed through her body, still trying to convince her to get up and run, fly, even as her muscles begged for mercy. She was drenched, positively soaking in sweat as the moon rose high in the sky, nearly at zenith now. Luna, she realized now, had been holding back their entire race up until they had reached the Everfree. Perhaps not in terms of weather magic, but certainly in terms of outright speed. But once they had begun again at the Everfree, she had stopped. Sound itself had shattered in her wake. Though fortunately, from the borders of the Everfree Forest to the haunted island of Tambalon, there were no ponies, no settlements, nothing but miles and miles of treetops that eventually gave way to miles and miles of open water that the two flew low enough over to leave waves in their wake. Once over the water, Celestia knew she would have to call upon her weather magic to again try and hamper Luna. But doing so would have taken time. Time enough for Luna to pull ahead of her. And so she had instead thought of only the next beat of her wings, the next breath of air in her lungs. And, when she had seen it on the far horizon, the white sands of the beaches of Tambalon, it was by less than a second. Speeds that made her trip over her own hooves, and stumble she didn't know how far up ahead into the beach, into the thick trees of the island, over an overgrown cobblestone road, hit a rock and be sent flying in the air, incapable of getting her wings under in time, and so crashing down in the center of a stone plaza. Nothing was broken, but everything was bruised, her entire body nothing but aches and pains.
but she had won. Cadence! Luna cried out as he flew overhead, circling around Celestia's fallen form, before letting herself fall to the ground, landing evenly. Even as he did, Celestia was picking herself up, still jittering, still in pain. But she smiled widely as she stood tall and looked Luna in the eye. "Oh, what?" she said, as she gasped her breath. What dost thou thinkest of my wings?" she demanded. Luna was breathing heavily as well, but not nearly as much as Celestia. She galloped next to Celestia, panic evident in her face, though it was panic that subsided as she saw that Celestia was basically unhurt, or at least not in a permanent way. Princess of the Night considered Celestia's question for a few moments. "Thou canst most certainly fly! Molto bene, mi susi," Celestia said, nodding a few times before falling to her side once more. Luna was beside her in a moment, getting down into her stomach. Horn glowing deep blue as she examined Celestia. "Thou art," Luna said, voice trailing as she searched for the correct wording. "Thou art undamaged. Thou hast suffered no permanent harm, not for thy lack of trying." She frowned deeply. "I have never seen a worse landing. Every bone in thy body would be dust if thou were merely a Pegasus." "Vinto." Luna paused at that. "Only because I let thee," she insisted. "Begurda." "Dost thou just call me a liar?" "Thou art growing quite bold." Celestia opened her mouth to apologize, but there was a huff over it before she could. Luna's horn glowed a little brighter as the Princess of the Night closed her eyes, and a midnight-hued aura traces around Celestia's prone form. It was like cold water and a cool balm for her aching muscles all in one. Exactly what Celestia needed now. She closed her eyes, letting Luna's magic work its way through her body. Slowly, her quivering wailing stilled. Her shaking limbs found a semblance of peace, and her breath slowed to more normal levels in her chest. When Luna's magic finally withdrew from her, she almost let out a cry of consternation. But that would have been unseemly and unprincess-like. So instead, she picked herself off her side, settling into a proper lying position, hooves tucked underneath her barrel, and wings folded on her side. She also, for the first time, gave serious consideration to her surroundings. She found herself in the center of a small, overgrown, and obviously abandoned town. Or perhaps hamlet would have been more correct, though that would have seemed generous. The cobblestone street beneath her was fighting a losing battle against the grasses and weeds, while the scarce hoofed hill of one-story stone buildings were in a similar state of decay and disrepair. Their roofs, most likely wood or thatch, had decayed long ago. One building had collapsed entirely in on itself but for a single wall. The small plaza that she was in, dominated by a center of fountain. Fountain once had a statue of some kind of pony adorning it. But wind and rain had eroded so badly, Celestia couldn't even begin to guess what type of pony it belonged to, let alone who it was supposed to represent. The fountain of water was thick and clearly polluted, even in the moonlight. "This is Tambalon?" Celestia asked for several moments of looking around. "I imagine the Dark City to be more—" "Don't worry, Celestia. The Dark City is an awesome movie. You really gotta watch it. I mean, it is truly great." "Oh, I'm sorry. It's just that anytime you can tell me to watch Dark City, I go crazy." She searched her equestrian vocabulary for more moments before shaking her head. "More," she said simply. Luna offered a grim smile as she stood, Celestia doing likewise. "Nay, this is not a city. No city can exist purely on its own." She went to hoof around. "Tabernon relied on farming and seaweed harvesting villages, such as this one, to keep it fed. Thus as Canterlot is surrounded by thorps and hamlets of its own. After my sister and I banished Grogar and the city of Tabernon into shadow, however, we had this island evacuated. Let the forests here reclaim what they will." Luna beat her wings a few times, once more taking to the air. Celestia followed. The two measured a gentle pace across the island, towards its center, leaving a ruined thorp behind, and arriving at Tambalon itself, or what was left of it. 1,000 years ago, give or take a few decades, a being, some called him a ram, Some called him a demon. None knew for sure. It had come from nowhere. Dark power emanating from his curved horns and dark intentions in his black heart. At the time, Tamberlin had been a verdant sovereign trading city, stopping off point for ships traveling from Palavid to the north to Calabata in the south, from Equestria to the east to the desert tribes of bisons and camels in the west. Grogar had seized Tamberlin using dark magic, but he had not been after the riches of the city. He had been after the ponies that had called it home. He enslaved them, and worse, for Grogar had been a necromancer, a speaker to the dead. Stories of his exact intentions from there varied from telling to telling. That he wanted to free Discord from Stone Prison, that he wished to create an undead empire spanning the continent. But he had no goal but death and destruction. Okay, pause. I gotta ask, how come we keep getting this in our head that Grogar is a necromancer? I mean, okay, G1 rules aside, and the fact that we couldn't show skeletons arising at the time, and there was no way Hasbro would let that happen on Pony. Happen on Dungeons and Dragons and happen on Transformers? Maybe, but not Pony. How do we keep coming up with this idea? There's no evidence that Grogar is a necromancer in either the show. Don't get me wrong, it's an awesome idea. I'm just trying to figure it out. But then the Alicorns had heard of his deeds. Celestia and Luna journeyed to Tamberlin. They had witnessed the dark actions that Grogar had taken there, and they were inspired with wind and fire, surf and stone. Grogar had fought them, and it was a testament that his power, according to legend, managed to hold the two Alicorns off for a full day and night. But that was all he managed. Celestia and Luna circled over the center of the island. Celestia saw that the walls of Tamberlin remained, and nothing else. The entire city had been scoured from the face of Earth. Buildings, parks, streets, even sewers and catacombs. More than scoured, in fact. For while over the island there were signs of ruined thorps, hamlets overgrown with weeds and vines, within the walls of Tamberlin, nothing new had grown. It was as though the forest had taken a look at the site where the two Alicorns fought their full rev onto the earth, seeing that they had left the wall intact, and understood the message that Luna and Celestia had delivered. It was with a significant amount of trepidation that Celestia followed Luna to the ground, the center of Tamberlin. As Luna touched down, the earth beneath her rippled, traveling outwards from her to the walls of Tamberlin. As the rippled passed, the ground shifted and settled, smoothing out to become solid, miles wide of packed dirt. As Celestia touched down, Luna regarded her with one arched eyebrow, in a wide circle, perhaps 8 or 9 feet in diameter, each into the dirt beneath Celestia's hooves surrounding her. After a moment, a glowing, barely visible field of white energy rose from the circle's edge, created a dome out of Celestia's head, its top about twice Celestia's height off the ground. Lastly, Luna's horn flashed once more, and a long thick strip of deep blue ribbon appeared. Celestia watched, forcing herself not to react, as the ribbon slipped under her barrel, then looped around over her neck. The two ends of the ribbon meeting on her side, melding together. Pinning her wings to her back, not particularly tightly, but securely enough that she could not spread her wings. "If thou wishest," Luna asked, "dost thou thinkest thou couldst break that ribbon?" Celestia considered breaking her wings. The ribbon was strong, and could not break easily from a mere twitch of her wings, or startled attempt to spread them. But as she tried, she was certain she could easily snap the strip in twain. She nodded. Luna did as well. "If thou dost so, thou forfeit thy claim to be thy sister. Put thy hoof beyond the dome's edge." Celestia was instructed. The white, barely visible field offered no impediment to her leg. It was a trick of light, nothing more. Luna nodded again. "If any part of thy body leaves the dome again, for any reason, thou likewise forfeit thy claim. Understood?" Celestia once again nodded as she withdrew her hoof. She heard of tests and trials like this. Ponies who were believed to have a special talent in magic would often find themselves subject to such tests. And in fact, Celestia had faced a few of her own back in Cavilia, though the Exarch had far more concern with trying to train her as to act, he felt, a princess should. However, Celestia,
After having spent several hours with Luna, was beginning to suspect that his viewpoint was woefully limited. In any event, Celestia understood the point of the test. At any point, she could leave the dome under her free will, but doing so was an admission of failure and inadequacy. His own way, it was a sturdier boundary than any constructed of steel or stone. She regarded Princess Luna. "What are thy conditions for thy success?" she asked. Luna began to pace around the circle. "When I am satisfied," she answered simply, as her horn glowed midnight blue. As she walked, the air she left in her wake would mist and swirl, solidifying into small balls of ice that followed in her wake, hovering off the ground. Celestia grimaced, her own horn glowing, as she finally found herself very grateful for the healing magic Luna had used on her earlier. She rifled through all the spells she knew. Fortunately, though, that number was small, and most of the magic she did know was defensive in nature, as the exarchs and teachers felt it was a good idea that she knew how to protect herself from harm. She would be well suited to stopping small balls of ice. Luna began tossing them, one by one. These, Celestia didn't even waste true spellcasting on. She caught them with telekinesis, crushed them, let them fall to the ground beneath her, or would telekinetically shove them from the ice circle before they could reach her. Luna kept creating more ice balls, while still moving, but Celestia kept catching them each time. It was pathetically easy, which meant that Celestia stayed on her hoof tips, even when Luna began to layer create balls of ice and throw them at faster speeds. But Celestia still had no trouble catching or deflecting. She kept her guard up. This was Luna, after all, though some ancient tradition, the magic was closely associated with the moon and stars and night with her. She was a being of immeasurable age. Even if she hadn't been an alicorn with near limitless pool of magic to draw from, she still would have had millennia experience to draw upon. The remains, or lack of, Tamberlon were proof of that. Luna began creating and throwing ice balls, 2, 3 at a time, then 4 and 5. Celestia reacted as quickly as she could each time, at last resorting to true spellcasting to create a shimmering, bright blue energy shield in front of her. In response, Luna's balls of ice started to arc around the shield, so Celestia conjured a second, then a third, fourth. Luna's pace quickened as well, until she was galloping in circles around the dome. Celestia forced to split her time between keeping an eye on Luna, in case she tried something new, and stopping the balls of ice from striking her. As at the speed they were being thrown, they could hurt her, and pain would only be distracting. With her intense self-focus, it was only pure luck that she happened to glance down and see it. The ends of the circle and dome were being surrounded by a midnight blue aura, slowly, cautiously, until Luna realized Celestia saw it and grinned wickedly. Her horn flared brightly, and the circle and the dome were lifted off the ground. But not Celestia. "Oh, Kazo!" the smaller alicorn cursed as the circle began to move. "Luna, that's cheating!" Or, to quote one of my favorite video games, "You cheated!" Chapter 7 The Alicorn Proof. Celestia's host skidded upon the packed dirt as he rapidly changed direction to match the circle's own shift. As he removed running, she had to call up a shield once more to stop the quartet of balls of ice from striking her. She stopped 3, the fourth smacking onto her withers, for the barest moment. She was concerned that Luna might call off the trial, but no more than a moment, for Luna did not call it off, and Celestia didn't have time to think beyond that as the circle once again changed its direction. Luna had stopped pacing, instead standing in the center of the scoured Tamberlon, moving only to keep following Celestia's movements. Her horn glowed as she solidified moisture in the air and hurled at the other alicorn, while simultaneously she continued to move the dome of light. Celestia had no idea how long this had been going on for. She would have personally guessed it had been scarce minutes, half an hour on the outside, but occasional glances at the moon overhead suggested otherwise. An hour at least, maybe more than one, but while she was still running, still defending herself, still only had the sting of ice striking her body a few times, she knew that wherever she was doing, it wasn't satisfying Luna. The Princess of the Night was not a sadist. She wasn't doing this because she wanted to see Luna struggle. She was looking for something beyond mere unicorn magic. Celestia's telekinesis and shields were more than enough proof that she possessed that. Her thoughts turned to their race over Equestria, their struggle with wind and weather, their competition with crafted tornadoes and conjured gales. Luna seemed far more satisfied with showing her in that contest, aside from the bug to the face, but that had left her only disappointed, not capisco, Celestia thought as the lightning struck, as the latest round of ice balls collided with her conjured shields. She reached out with her telekinesis, finding the edges of the circle, as cautiously as she could let Luna see her, taking extra effort to hide the telltale, bright blue evanescence of her telekinetic aura. As Celestia's aura crept over it, she was fairly certain Luna didn't notice. At least, not until once her encirclement was complete. Celestia dropped her conjured shields entirely, ignored the pain of the fuming ice ball striking her as she stopped running, at the same time, grabbed the edges of the circle, overpowering Luna's fairly loose telekinetic grip, and violently bringing the circle to a halt as well. "Finally!" she heard Luna exclaim. Celestia smiled brightly as she looked to Luna expecting praise, but instead found the Princess of the Night standing with legs wide, horn glowed. Behind her and beside her, the earth rose up in a trio of uneven chunks. Celestia instantly realized where this was going, as just one of the chunks, the largest of the three, 4 times Celestia's height, was hurled at her. Without releasing her hold on the circle as she claimed from Luna, she reached out telekinetically, not onto the oncoming rock, but onto her own hose as she kept, just taking the circle with her. Buoyed by her magic, she was able to plant hose on top of the hurled earth, then leap that higher into the air. The smallest of the 3 chunks was thrown at her next, as she was falling back to the ground. Without thinking, she reached out telekinetically, imagining a long thin plane of magic that would simply slice the chunk in half. There was a crack as it did so, as Celestia fell between the rent hunk of earth, landing evilly on the ground again. She hadn't known she could do that, but she didn't have time to feel pleased with herself, as Luna telekinetically threw the last chunk of rock. This, Celestia caught with her own telekinesis, ducking even as she pushed the rock up and over her head, where it fell somewhere behind her. Even as she did, she realized 3 things. 1. Luna was expecting her to do more than defend herself with the same shield spell over and over again. 2. While no part of her body could pass the limits of the circular dome, her magic was under no such restriction. 3. Now she knew that, she realized this wasn't a magical test. This was a magical duel. The duels weren't won by staying purely on the defense. Of course, defensive spells were essentially all she knew. No pony Ophelia had taught her any kind of offensive magic, and she possessed little desire to earn any. But on the other hoof, she had been previously unaware that her telekinesis could be used to slice a solid rock in half if focused correctly. But in the heat of the moment, without thinking, simply doing, she had been able to perform such a feat. "Start with what I know," she instructed herself, conjuring a pair of shields on either side of her, blue and translucent. They were rectangular in shape, but she wheeled her lower halves to change shape and length, changing them to become kite shields. Even as she did this, Luna's own horn glowed, and she conjured a pair of long streams of star-studded energy. Whips, most likely. Luna Celestia charged. Luna was, by an order of magnitude, older and stronger than she was at present. She remembered finding Grogar, Tirek, Discord himself. The ruins of Tamberlon were a testament to the power she could wield. Celestia wanted any chance of winning, she would have to take and hold the initiative. She also reminded herself that, like her own wings, Luna's wings were not bound. If Luna wanted to, she could fly. Celestia knew enough of Luna now to know she would not expect the Princess of the Night to play fair. I just thought about it, but maybe I should read Dual Nature next. When she was within range, Luna's right hoof went the last out, straight forward. Celestia had expected it, using her cartridge shield to block the incoming blow without slowing. Luna's second whip came from the side, but Celestia stopped that as well. Her shields were more than up to the task of protecting her. On seeing this, they disappeared, and Luna stamped both her front hooves to the ground, disappeared from view for a moment. And as he reappeared, there appeared to be 6 of her, each of which began spreading out across the arena. Celestia skidded to a halt, eyes wide for a moment as she took in each of Luna. They had to be illusions, she knew. Unfortunately, illusion dispelling magic formed a part of her existing repertoire of magic. She called out the spell, horn grinding bright blue as he hurled an orb of magic forward. It exploded in a burst of light, and all 6 Lunas disappeared. And one appeared from nowhere, charging straight at her. Luna's eyes widened in shock as he barely moved once to the side. Luna anticipated the dodge, however, and adjusted her movement enough that she caught Celestia as she turned, knocking the wind from the smaller alicorn, although she was careful to knock into Celestia with her shoulder rather than horn. The two fell together in a heap, Celestia landing on her back and crying out, though more in surprise than in pain, but getting her legs under Luna and shoving, weaving magical enchantments into her legs as she did so, that allowed her to toss Luna high into the air, then scrambling to her hose. Celestia got her feet under her, even as Luna landed easily. Wings still tucked comfortably at the side, horn glowing and causing darts as of balls of ice. Celestia bit back a swear of exasperation, as she was beginning her concert shields in time to block the incoming ice balls. However, Luna conjured more and more, hurling a half dozen each second. Celestia dropped to the ground, calling on new, unfamiliar magic once more, acting purely on instinct now as she shaped her magic into the first direct counter to the ice that she could think of. With a sweep of her front hose, the air between Celestia and Luna ignited, creating a wide line of fire that also instantly evaporated the ice Luna was throwing her way. What little reached Celestia's shields was more than harmless slush. By the time Celestia dispelled the wall of fire, Luna had turned around and ran away grinning. Celestia, remembering the strength-enhancing enchantments she woven into her hose to get Luna off of her, leapt to the air and landed in front of the Princess of the Night. It was skidded to a stop as Celestia's horn glowed again as she conjured 5 spears of eldritch energy, raw magic, and hurled them. Luna, surprised on her face as Celestia got the drop on her, tried to avoid them. But magical attack was unerring, and the 5 orbs hit home against her flank, neck, and legs. She stumbled slightly, but didn't lose her balance, and winced at the slight pain. "Impressive, but I'm not satisfied. Not yet!" Luna called as she leapt backwards, spinning and horn glowing. Celestia threw more missiles, but Luna, prepared this time, stopped each of them with magic while still in the air. Celestia was already charging as the Princess of the Night landed. But as soon as he did, the ground beneath Celestia suddenly became coated in a slippery substance, spreading out in a circle from Luna. Lost her balance and tumbled to the ground, though she continued gliding forward. Luna, meanwhile, leapt, creating a gust of wind under her to carry her outside the range of her grease spell, deliberately not using her wings. When she landed on clean earth, she reared back onto her hind legs and shot a bolt of magic into the sky. Instantly, ice began to fall in large chunks, some as large as a pony's head, over the greasy area. Celestia gasped at the sight, willing herself to get out from under the magical ice storm. Her horn glowed as if it was on its own accord. Suddenly, she had moved, changing positions entirely. She found herself standing an easy 30 feet from where she had been, covered in magical grease, but no longer underneath the falling ice. She teleported, she realized, something that only the most skilled unicorn mages were capable of. Luna noticed, of course, and smiled, teleporting herself, disappearing from where she had been standing, and appearing in front of Celestia, and conjuring a blade of ice, swinging it telekinetically at Celestia. She barely avoided the initial wing and its following up jazz, before centering itself to call up a blue-tinted steel knife of her own. This was another new one, but by now Celestia had decided to stop marveling at her ability to create new spells on the fly, which was able to stop and shatter Luna's. This gave her little time, however, as the shards of shattered ice were propelled forward telekinetically, and into Celestia, stinging her. Celestia felt a measure of exasperation by now. She threw a hoof forward as she directed her own conjured knife at Luna's side, and nimble as Luna was, still glided across her flank, though that blade was insufficiently sharp or magical enough to harm Luna. She never glanced at it surprised, and took her eyes off of Celestia for a moment too long, as the other alicorn reached out telekinetically, wrapped her magic around Luna, holding her in place. Or trying to. Luna smiled wryly, horn glowing, and the bright blue aura that surrounded her was pushed away and off of her. She cantered backwards several paces as her own midnight-hued magic found Celestia's own and snuffed it out, an action that sent a jolt of pain straight down Celestia's horn and into her skull. By the time she recovered, Luna had created a quartet of whips, like the ones she had made before, and swung them in from all sides. Celestia brought her shields up on either side, stopping them. But then the 3 more whips appeared from nothingness, and lashed around Celestia's front hooves, and horn pulling. She cried out as she lost her balance and fell forward, onto the dirt beneath her, while also losing her concentration, her shields disappearing and magical grip on the dome failing. Most of the whips disappeared, except for the ones around her legs. Luna pulled on them again, dragging Celestia forward, towards the edge of the circle. The pink alicorn panicked, crossing up the blade again and driving it down into the whips, or trying to telekinetically destroy them, but failed as they tugged again, and her front 2 hooves came within an inch of the circle. Glancing up at Luna, she sent a telekinetic burst onto the other alicorn's horn again, but Luna expected it, stopping the burst easily. She tried to teleport again, but the whips held her in place, stopping her from popping out of reality. The whips tugged a 3rd time. Not hard, not much, but Celestia passed beyond the dome. Instantly, it disappeared, as did the strip around her wings, and whips. They took all Celestia's dreams for the past decade with them. Celestia stared in shock at her own hooves, eyes wide. Slowly she stood, looking to Luna and forcing the tears in her eyes back. Thy terms were clear, she said slowly. I prevailed. I shall forfeit. Still thy tongue! Luna interrupted, though gently. Thou hast met my expectations. Celestia had literally obeyed Luna's command, now thinking open as she did. She closed it slowly, staring at the Princess of the Night in confusion. But, she said, tears still streaming from her eyes. Tears of relief, while she was unable to keep at bay, unlike tears of despair. But thy terms? Luna waved her concern away. The only reason I made them, she said, was to put pressure on thee. The true test was of battle magic, and thy use of it. Tell me, could thou squeeze stone in half with telekinesis or conjured fire? Why dost not now attempt to do such to me? Celestia blinked in shock. Cleave thee in half? She demanded. I admit I was holding much back this entire duel, and I am certain that thou wert aware of this. It almost certainly would not have worked. But if it had? Celestia demanded, her 2 front hooves shifting way uncontrollably, wings fluttering in agitation. I would never! That is what I needed to know, Luna explained. When thou faced true pressure, when everything holds dear was at risk, I needed to see how you would react. She smiled. I'm pleased with the result. Celestia shivered, wings folding tight against her body as she eyed Luna, who at least seemed to notice her discomfort and distress. I am sorry, Cadenza, she said. It was cruel of me to act as I did, but I need to know how thou wouldst act. She looked to the ground. I once before made the mistake of assuming that the pony I thought I knew was all there was to that pony. It is not a mistake I shall make again. Celestia nodded. I understand, she said softly. I have much to repent for. Silence lingered between the 2 alicorns, for several long moments at that, before Luna looked up at the sky. The moon was about half laid down its descent by now, and soon it would need to set beyond the horizon. The sun would need to rise. Luna spread her wings, taking to the air slowly. Fly with me, she said. Back to the Equestria. Let us away to this place. The flight from Tamberlon, over the Sea of Tranquility and Everfree Forest, was done in silence. While the 2 alicorns flew at considerable speed, compared to the cruising speed of a Pegasus, neither were trying to race at one another this time. Luna, whenever Celestia looked to her, was always staring ahead. At the beginning of the flight, she managed to maintain a fairly neutral expression, but over the course, gradually worn away by a look of melancholy distress, with perhaps a sad hint of determination to see things through, no matter what the cost. At length, about half the distance between Everfree Forest and Canterlot, Luna indicated the top of a large, grassy hill, the tallest for miles around the broad forest that surrounded Canterlot. The 2 alicorns landed atop of it, Luna squinting and studying the moon for several moments before looking at her and Celestia. How canst thou prove to me that thou contains within thee the abilities of an earth pony? She asked. She turned around and sat down on her haunches. Earth pony magic is as great as any unicorn spell or Pegasus scroll, but it is slow, it's subtle. She laughed as he indicated the grasslands around them. Perhaps I should have thee start a farm and inspect thy crop. It may take some time before I see the results, however. Celestia bit her lip, thinking. I've been proving it all night? She asked. When we raced the Tablon, no Pegasus could have kept going for as long as I did. Or when I landed, crossed into the island, thy own words were that, were I mere Pegasus, my bones would have shattered. Luna's head tilted to one side. I have known Pegasi capable of enduring great hardships and pain, she noted. Celestia blinked, even as Luna glanced to the east once more. Her horn began glowing, as in the far distance the moon began its ascent beyond the horizon. One by one, the stars in the night sky began to creep back from the east, and head west as well, drifting across the dome of the sky and towards the horizon, joining the moon beyond it. At length, the only light across Equestria was the glow of Luna's horn, casting both her and Celestia in a deep midnight blue glow. Raise the sun, she instructed. Celestia blinked. What? She demanded. Raise the sun, Luna repeated. If thou art Celestia, then it would be a simple task for thee. I have directed the course of the moon and stars for as long as I can remember, and Celestia has done as much for the sun. She took several steps forward, coming close to Celestia as she did so. I will admit, Cadenza, thou art an alcohol. I have known that thou art an alcohol from the moment I laid pies upon thee. My expensive trials have not been attempting to confirm that. They have been expecting not what thou art, but who thou art. She took several steps backwards, spreading her wings wide. Equestria sits in darkness, Cadenza. Bring light to it, and thy claim shall be recognized. Thou shalt be my sister, reborn. Celestia stared at Luna, blinking. But I never... Try! Luna nodded toward the east. It sits there, waiting for thee. If thou would only look, thou wouldst find it. Celestia's eyes fluttered rapidly, more times, before she let a look of determination pass over her face. She nodded once, looking to the east, and closing her eyes. Celestia had tried to raise the sun in the past. On being told who she was, of course, she had tried, several times, magic reaching out far to the east, and trying to grasp the burning eye of her fire, light and magic that was the sun. But there had always been a sort of blackness, a kind of current that seemed to stand in the way. This time, that current wasn't there, and Celestia realized that current must have been the influence of Luna, the Princess of the Night's own perpetual grip on the sun, controlling its actions and guiding it through the sky. An impenetrable wall of magic that likely not even noticed Celestia's own bumbling attempts. She had given up, settling on the fact that, once she was a princess of Equestria again, the sun would return to her. Grasping the sun magically was completely unlike using telekinesis. It was a massive object, thousands of miles across, and further it had no physical form to grasp at all, instead simply being an orb of fire, light, and magic. Celestia at first attempted to grasp the whole thing anyway, but soon found that spreading her magic across its surface was simply beyond her capabilities. And then she noticed she could go into it. In her mind's eye, it was like floating in outer space, staring at the sun, seeing a gap in the flames, a hole that would lead right down its core. That was where she had to go. She was sure of it. Celestia cast her magic into that hole, traveling down the burning path. The image in her mind grew ever more vivid as she did. Soon, she was simply not imagining walking through the fires of the sun. She was actually there, traveling into it, flying straight down towards the center. The fires were all around her, but they didn't burn her. They warmed and caressed her, soothed her aching joints and bruised skin as much as Luna's own magic had done. And at length, she passed beyond the fires, arrived at the center of the sun. She saw fire everywhere, but it appeared transparent, in the core of it all, she found herself standing on a surface. A solid bright light, scorching metal, gold. Celestia realized, gold that remained solid, despite the extreme heat surrounding her. Like the fires all around her, and the gold did not burn her in the slightest. The spear was tens of thousands of feet across. This is it, she thought, looking around. This is where I have... She saw her. Celestia blinked and shook her head. She knew it was a pointless accent. She wasn't really within the sun. She was back in Equestria. She had no true eyes and no head to shake. But the accents came to her nonetheless as she saw, 100 feet away, the smooth surface of the golden sphere broken by a wide golden throne. Its back made to look like spreading wings and bowed head of an alicorn, reachable only by climbing 100 wide steps. And lying on the throne, asleep. Celestia realized she was walking toward the throne, but she couldn't stop herself. She didn't want to stop her. She had to see her. Had to. She spread her wings, taking flight and climbing the rest of the steps to the throne, settling down halfway up its steps. She was large, half again the height of Luna, nearly as tall as Celestia. Her coat was of purest white, its perfection marred only by the golden cutie mark on her flanks in the sun in full blazing glory. Her mane and tail were flames as well, notably alight, and standing out even in this place, where the very air itself was composed of flame. Clouds around her hooves were golden shoes, and a golden chest plate hung around her neck, while upon her head sat a crown of gold, but for a wrinkled purple gem into its center. Deep inside the burning heart of the sun, Corona lay dreaming on her golden throne. But not for long. Celestia took one step away, curiosity satisfied. Corona's eyes opened. For a moment, they looked like a normal pony's, purple with black pupils. For a bare moment, look of surprise on her face. But then her lips curled back into a sneer. As the color of her eyes faded, they glowed brighter and brighter, gradually losing distinction entirely, becoming pure white ores. "Who art thou? How dost thou come here?" Corona demanded, voice shaking the sun to its core. Never mind the effect it was having on Celestia. The smaller alicorn let out a yelp of surprise as he beat her wings, gliding backwards and away from Corona. The white alicorn snarled, however, the horn glowing bright white. And suddenly, Celestia was forced to the ground, pressed to the golden sphere beneath her, then dragged forward as Corona descended her throne. "Thou art thy sister!" Corona intoned as he watched. "Thou art nothing more than a trespasser upon thy rightful domain!" Celestia was in front of Corona now. Corona herself now standing at the foot of the throne, glaring down Celestia's prone throne. "Speak!" the white alicorn demanded, in a voice that would have rattled apart stone. "What is thy name? What is thy purpose here? Answer me, or I shall visit upon thee that shall beg for death!"
Celestia,
the small alicorn cried.
My name is Celestia."
Corona recoiled at that, her snarl growing ever more terrifying. "Liar! Impostor! I am Celestia! I am the sun!" She glared at Celestia, eyes narrowing as they flashed brighter, along with her horn. "Thou shalt suffer for thy presumption! I will visit such pain upon thee! I shall burn away all thou art! Thou shalt be nothing left! And I will crawl inside thy skull, and use thee to see my escape from this prison!" From nowhere, a dark blue before energy struck Corona, at the base of her horn. The white alicorn was recoiled, releasing Celestia. She scrambled away from the tyrant sun, turning around and spotting Luna, staring a scarce 10 feet away, without even thinking what she was doing. Celestia ran behind Luna, ducking behind her, hiding behind her like a nervous foal hiding behind her mother. Corona recovered quickly enough from Luna's attack, and glared at her. "Traitor! Release me!" she cried, mane and tail flaring, horn glowing as she suddenly felt all the fires of the sun seem to descend upon Luna. Celestia flinched, but Luna didn't move a muscle. The fires passed harmlessly through her and Celestia. "She has no power here, Cadenza," Luna said, as Corona roared and stomped her hooves, conjuring more fire and lashing out at the two of them. "This would be a poor prison indeed if she had the run of the place. Even her grip upon you was born almost entirely from thy own belief in what she could do. Even still, thy own mind could never allow her to harm thee." "Consort of Tirak! Traitor to thine own blood!" Corona spat, lunging at Luna. Celestia flinched again, but once more Luna stood still, and Corona seemed to come up against an invisible wall. She couldn't touch Luna, nor even come close to it.
though she railed against the barrier, slamming it against her hooves, stamping it with her horn. I will be free! Equestria belongs to me! It is mine! Everything mine! Luna stared for several more moments. Horn glowed. Gradually, all around Celestia, the fires of the sun, the metallic spear that she stood upon, golden throne, the mad alicorn that was the tyrant's son, and the solid rock that was princess of the night, faded from view, leaving Celestia crouched upon this grassy hill where she and Luna alighted. Nearby, looking east, Luna's horn was glowing as he guided the sun over the horizon. At length, she turned around, looking at Celestia, a sad look on her face as she did. Every dawn, for 20 years, I have raised the sun. I have touched my sister's soul, bound into the sun, bound us there for evermore by the elements of harmony. I do not venture into the sun as you did. I have learned how to project power into it, hoist it up through our using a lever, that I do not have to stand in her presence as I work. She trotted up to Celestia, who was sitting on her stomach staring at her hose. But I will always feel her, Luna said softly. I will always feel her hate, greed, every morning. That is my punishment for not acting sooner, not realizing what was happening to her, for not saving her. She has cast forevermore into the sun, and I am doomed forevermore to suffer her hate. And so, Cadenza, I can say this with absolute certainty. Thou art not my sister. Celestia, Cadenza, looked up at Luna, as the other alicorn settled next to her. She felt the warning signs a second before it happened. The sinking in her eyes, the trembling of her lip, shivering of her breath. Then a moment she was crying. Without thinking, she buried her head into Luna's neck, sobbing openly. And Luna, with the same lack of thought, draped a wing over Cadenza's falling form, running a hoof through her mane, holding her tightly even as tears of her own slipped silently from her eyes, getting lost in the deluge of Corona's own, even as he whimpered, soft, comforting words in Cadenza's ears. Sun already cleared the horizon by the time Cadenza was capable of conscious thought, and tells it words again.
But then,
Cadenza gasped out.
then, I spent so much of my life trying. Who am I?
Who am I, princess? Luna drew her away from Cadenza somewhat, looking at the smaller alicorn in the eye for several long moments. I don't know, she said at length. I cannot answer for that for thee. No pony can. The course of thy life is thy own choice, Cadenza. But thou cannot follow in the footsteps of others. Thou must chart thy own course. She drew Cadenza close again. Thou art an alicorn. All of eternity stretches before thee. Each day thou wakest up, thy whole life is still ahead of thee. Thou art not Celestia, but thou art kind. Thou art courteous and gracious. If all I see thee is true, thou could do much good in the world, if that is thy wish. Cadenza nodded, wiping her eyes, leaning closer into Luna's embrace. She forgot for a moment that this was the princess of the night, sovereign, the ruler of Equestria, separate of the moon, vanquisher of the sun. Instead, all she could think of was how warm Luna was, with a wing wrapped around her. How surprisingly soft her pelt. Regular her heart's beat within her chest, powerful and strong. Within moments, the weight of the day came drowsing down on Cadenza, and she was asleep.